Ivo Mićić.
When you listen to people nowadays, you hear a lot of fears of the future, and rightly so. I'm in this business been here for 33 years. Started when I was a student, and never did we have so many reasons to fear the future. When you look at those problems, they're all like self-inflicted because of our short-sightedness. We focus on the here and now, and in the past we focused on the here and now and made decisions and acted or did not act and thereby harmed our future where we are in today. And we keep repeating this. The world is changing. The world is changing from era to era. We have a concept, a business, a company, a product that is growing, and then it stalls because something new appears, and the old thing is in crisis, and the new thing is about to be prevalent. What do people do in such situations? They hold on tight and actually make the crisis even worse. What we should do is embrace the new concept, embrace the new technology, embrace the new strategy. But we don't like to do that. That's why we're short-sighted. And we are in a time where we are at the end of an era in many respects, in energy, in mobility, finance, global politics. But over all these years and decades, quality of life on Earth always increased. For 200 years, we've been better off year by year, except for the Great Wars. So there is reason to believe that this is going to continue. There is reason to have and to feel justified joy for the future. This is one of the rare moments and instances where the German word is actually a little bit nicer. It's Zukunftsfreude, joy for the future. Companies that feel fear of the future, they're stalled. Everybody defends themselves against innovation and change. You need to incentivize people and push people into the future. That takes a lot of time, is very expensive, and is not fun. Where we have joy for the future, there people love to create the next era. They're motivated, and they're passionate, and they perform. This is what we need. This is what we need in Europe, this is what we need in this country, and this is what we need in each and every company. There are reasons to feel joy for the future, because energy, which used to be, and still is, a huge problem and a reason for our challenges in climate change. Energy will become sustainable and cheap, more sustainable and cheaper. Takes some time. But when we look at all the investments that are happening right now, it's amazing. The first time I showed a floating solar a couple of years ago, it said 40 megawatt. Then I showed a Chinese plant already built with 320 megawatt. Now the Indians are building one with 600 megawatt. Prices for solar, for wind, and for batteries are collapsing. And they have already. Since 2010, solar went down by 90% in cost per kilowatt hour, wind by 70%, batteries by 90%. And this will continue. And this is why, really in an exponential way, things are really getting better. These are real investments. Like the dark line is the real investment. And even the International Energy Agency doesn't get it. All their forecasts are linear, kind of linear. Yeah, it grew, but now it's going to grow just linearly. No, it's not. That's the problem with our kind of thinking, our human thinking, because we've seen that during the pandemic, we have a hard time thinking exponentially. One of the biggest markets that is developing right now, and will be developing for decades, is large-scale batteries, stationary batteries. We need roughly 300 terawatt hours of storage on Earth to become totally renewable. These batteries are built of LFP, lithium iron, not iron, lithium iron batteries, no nickel, no cobalt. Recyclable to a degree of 96% today. It's going to be 98 to 99% in the future. Do we have the material? Well, do we need to destroy the planet for the materials? No. What you see here is coal up there, 9 million kilotons. Then oil, 4.4. And this is the rest what we need. Lithium, manganese, maybe cobalt for NMC batteries, and nickel. It's just 180 for lithium. Even if you take that times 20 or 50, you won't even see the bar. And University of Münster here in Germany tells us in 2050, 60 or 70, we'll be done with mining because recycling will provide for all of the needs that we have for renewable energy and for batteries and for storage. So we bought the batteries already. We're not going to be dependent on China anymore. All good news. And the red part is burnt. It's gone forever. The green part is used and recycled. We will travel and transport sustainably and inexpensively. What is the propulsion of the future? Well, is it hydrogen? Last year, we sold on Earth more Ferraris than hydrogen cars. And the number is going down. Same with buses. Montpellier bought buses, and then they noticed, wow, it's 5 times more expensive than battery buses. And even MAN is saying, well, cannot survive. So it's not hydrogen. Hydrogen has no reason to be used on roads, has no reason to be used in heating, no matter what politicians say. Looking at it long term, you always need to look at pure first principle arguments. Hydrogen is a gas that needs to be used in industry. Google for the hydrogen ladder, and you're going to see where hydrogen needs to be used, and it's not on the roads. No, we're going to be inexpensive and sustainable through electrification. We've seen large trucks. We worked with Liebherr a couple of years ago, and we told them, yeah, your big machines, they're going to be electrified. They said, what? No, we're Liebherr. We're building machines for real men, which is diesel. 2 weeks ago, the same company, Liebherr, received the biggest order in history for hundreds of machines, 264 tons, transporting 100 tons, fully electric, charging with 3.7 megawatt. This is an order today, business, the biggest order that they got so far. The Shenxing Plus battery, CATL, the largest battery manufacturer on Earth, claims will be good for 1,000 kilometers. It's a Chinese standard, so I reduced it to 800. It's going to charge 500, no, what did it say? 600 in 600 kilometers in 10 minutes. I reduced it to 500. And they are starting to guarantee 1 million kilometers with over 80% of capacity with the battery. It's over for other kinds of propulsion. This year alone, cost for batteries at the pack level fell by almost 50% this year alone, and it's going to continue. So we will see 800 kilometers of range, fully loaded. Later, we'll see it autonomous. How about ships? Well, not the really large ones. We're not going to see them in 5, 10, 15 years being electric. But we're starting that process too. What about planes? Well, again, CATL. We always said, or experts always said, when we have 500 watt-hours per kilogram gravimetric energy density, then we can use it for planes, for aircraft. And they say by 2028, make it 2030, they'll be able to power planes with 8 tons, which is a plane for about 30 people. And if you use several of those planes, and they would be way cheaper to fly, if you use several of those, you can, of course, cover like all regional air travel. And we're going to travel and transport sustainably and cheaply through cost reduction. Total cost of ownership for cars, passenger vehicles, are already on par or even cheaper to run if they're electric. But people are emotional. Carriers are not emotional about this. They look at cost. But even passenger cars, look what happened in China so far. In 2018, it was barely 5, 6, 7% of cars that were cheaper, the equivalent cheaper compared to the ICE version. Now it's 60%, and the trend is continuing. So in 2, 3, 4 years, it will also, for the emotional consumer, be the better choice and the cheaper choice, even with a sticker price, to buy electric. That is what we do not include if we just extrapolate the linear events. We know what happened in Norway, right? 95%, 96% battery electric of new vehicles registered, 95 or 96%. They started way before us, so it's not comparable, of course, but comparing Norway 10 years ago, we can compare us with Norway maybe 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And there is a pattern, and the pattern is always the same. The same thing happened exactly that way in Norway. It is happening now in China, and it is happening and will happen in Europe. You could say, well, I don't care. It doesn't matter what I transport. Well, the problem is our OEMs, our dear OEMs, our customers, are already and will be more in trouble. I was presenting about Tesla for the first time in 2006 to OEMs, to Bosch, to Continental. Of course, they were smiling, then they were laughing, and they continued to smile and laugh for 12 years, 14 years. Because the idea was, well, we know how to build cars, and electrifying is easy. No, it's not, because those are software-defined vehicles. And traditional OEMs are not really good at that. And nobody makes money on electric vehicles, not even BYD. Ford, and they're the only ones who show us the numbers because they have Model E, the separate branch. First quarter this year, they lost $132,000 per car sold, per electric car sold. Now it's 40-something thousand. That's why they're in trouble. Is like battery electric plummeting? It's not. Globally, we're over 20% growth rate this year. It's just a dip. And the dip has reasons. In Germany, it's just because there are no subsidies anymore. And Germany is the biggest market in Europe. So to retreat from battery electric and to focus on hybrid is a dangerous strategy. Hybrids are going to go away as they did in Norway. Hybrids from a technological point of view, from an economic point of view, and an ecologic point of view, long-term do not make any sense. They burn even more often than battery electric vehicles, and more often than ICE vehicles. So you have the same pattern all over the place. In Germany, in France, it's just a little bit different. We're going to drive cheaply and more sustainably because of AI. And there's the next problem, why we need to care for our OEMs. What is happening right now is unprecedented. You're all familiar with Moore's law, like transistors, chips are getting better, double the capacity every 18 months. We are exceeding that by a factor of 2 or 3 now. These are AI chips by NVIDIA, H100, H200, and the next generation that is being built now is 5 times more. It's just a year of difference. These systems, these AI training centers are being built all over the world. The biggest one of the biggest ones, is being built by a car maker. It's Tesla. And we do not see, or we ignore, what that means. They are collecting data on an unimaginable scale, and nobody has that. Even Waymo, the second one, is several hundred times less in terms of availability of data. They have just 700 cars. The Chinese, nobody really knows how they're doing, but let's assume they also have such a solution. We will have cars not bought by people to have them used for 5% of the day. We will have cars that are going to be used 50, 60, 70% of the day. 15, 16, 17 hours. And then they're going to be very cheap per kilometer. Just a couple of days ago, this was the famous Tesla robotaxi without a steering wheel, without pedals. Is that going to come true? Of course. Is that going to come true by 2026? Well, maybe. They're pretty optimistic, but they deliver. They've always delivered. Yeah, but they just use cameras. They don't use LiDAR. Yeah, that's the reason why they're going to win. Because a Waymo car is $150,000 at least. This one, in production, less than 20. That's why it's scalable. And they already have 7 million cars on the road. And it's not going to be just cars. It's going to be vans. They call it robo-vans or robovans. And we're going to use it in industries that we couldn't imagine will be affected by autonomy. Why enter a hotel room, dress, undress, check in, check out? No, just stay in the vehicle. Dozens, if not hundreds of industries are going to be affected to the positive. It's going to increase our quality of life massively. You spend, on average, 2 weeks driving your car. That's additional time that you get. And they're going to be safer. Of course, insurance will be paid by the manufacturer, by the programmer, by the developer of the software. Of course. This is not an open question. We have an ethics committee in Germany, and they say if it's really true that this saves lives, then it's not a question of are we going to allow this? Then we need to further it. We have 1.3 million people dying on the roads on Earth each year, and a couple of millions being injured. So we need to do that. So either they're 10 times, 15 times, 100 times better, safer than human drivers, and then we will have them, or if they're not safer, we will not have them. So fearing autonomous vehicles is not really meaningful. But the consequences, if they drive 15, 16 hours, we have a kilometer for 15 cents or 20 cents. It's not taxi prices. They don't have the driver. They're really minimalized cars, battery electric, few parts. Then with 15 or 20 or 25 cents per kilometer, many people will not buy a car anymore. And cars, new registrations are going to collapse. Why am I saying that? I said, well, you need to feel joy for the future. It needs to be reasonable joy for the future, justified joy for the future. We cannot ignore what is happening. We cannot ignore the threats and the disruption. We cannot hold on tight, yeah, it's been that way and it's going to stay that way. No, it's not. We are in a time that was unimaginable a couple of years ago. After 70 years of development of artificial intelligence, we are there. So we are there, but just at the beginning. We have language models, multimodal models. We're just beginning to have the reasoners. They can really think. It's not like ChatGPT in the first iterations. Then we have the agents already beginning, virtual agents, and then we have the hardware agents. And they will change the world even more because hardware agents are robots. The Chinese government in November last year said, and they wrote a directive. They wrote a directive to their economy, to their businesses, to the entire society. We want to be market leaders by 2027 with humanoid robots, with an entire value chain for humanoid robots. Robots that can, and I'm quoting from the directive, that can think, learn, and be innovative. The dexterity is already amazing. In surgery, please go to a clinic that uses robotic surgeons. They are safer. You don't believe? Well, get informed. And luckily, we have in the West also some companies that are developing them. It's half China, or half Asia, mostly China, and half the West. Do we have them in Europe? One. Not more. Are they all going to win? No. But NVIDIA is developing a platform, a foundation model that's called Groot, where they learn from each other. And there is already Apollo being tested at Mercedes. There is already Figure, a humanoid robot, being tested at BMW. Walker is being tested at NIO. Optimus is being tested at Tesla. We're going to see a world where they first work in the factories, then they work in service, in construction, then they'll be in our households. The problem is, we've seen that in science fiction, and we still think this is science fiction. No. Again, I'm in this business for 33 years, and I'm not getting paid for science fiction. I'm getting paid for helping develop strategies and make decisions in companies. This is around the corner. Next year, we're going to see at least 1,000 of them work. And at some point in time, maybe end of the 2030s, maybe 2040s, we will have as many of those as we have cars on the road, 1.5 billion. How much will they cost? I made a calculation. And to put it short, make it short, it's going to be 14 euros at the beginning per hour, then 12, then 10, then 8, then 6, then 4. Because this is technology that is developing, and there is something called Wright law. And Wright's law means with every doubling of production, cumulative doubling of production, the cost will decrease by 30%, most likely. And the value creation is mostly software. Software, AI, they're learning from each other. They're learning from humans. They're being trained end to end. They don't have to learn the city or your apartment as traditional autonomous vehicles need to learn the city and they just can drive in a part of the city. No, it needs to be general. It needs to be able to drive anywhere, even where no car of this kind has ever been. Same with robots. End-to-end training means they watch our videos. You show them what to do, and they're able to replicate. Are we there already? Almost. So, what you need to do as a business leader, you need to develop, ignite joy for the future, even if you're scared. Do you want to sell your business at some point in time? Do you want your children to take over your business at some point in time? If the answer is yes, then make sure you still have a bright future business, a business that still has a bright future. And there are 8 properties of a bright future business. First, you are improving many people's quality of life. We need to do good for the world. We need to do good for the customers. The second is, you'll remember maybe Reinhold Wirth, he once said, you need to keep your company in the becoming. It needs to become something. You need to have the image of the next era in your mind, to invite people to work for you. Of course, many customers like to buy a lot at profitable prices, attractiveness, differentiation, positioning, innovation. We need to be attractive for new talent, so they come, stay, like to perform. Of course, you can pay for yoga and massage, but that's like an adult daycare center for people. No, the actual opportunity is you need to invite people to create the next era of your company. Well, would it have been easier to just continue to do your business? Yeah, sure. But this is not an option. So we need to develop that joy for the future. We need to be more productive. And I promise you, electrification, autonomy is going to reduce cost unimaginably. The robots are going to reduce cost of living massively. We will have an economic and technological deflation that is unprecedented. We need to make sure we're safe against competitors and against disruption. Just one rule, what you write on your invoices is not your business. What the customers are doing with what you do and what you write on the invoices, that's the business. Do I have 1 minute more? Okay. We used to buy records to enjoy the emotions from music. Okay? Records for the younger people, those flat black discs that were, yeah. Then we had CDs, then it was cool to download MP3 files for 99 cents. All your music on the hard disk. And now we're paying rent for a database for music. What you write, or what they write on the invoice is totally different, but what we buy has remained the same. And that's the same with your business. Do not focus on what you write on the invoice. Transported so many cars from A to B. Think of what the real effect of what you're doing, what the real business is, and then you're safe against disruption. And we need to make sure that your business remains a joy for the shareholders. Then your son or your daughter is going to take the business. Otherwise, it's a burden. Or if they don't want to, then you can sell it to someone who enjoys the business and not sees it as a burden. So we need reasonable, justified joy for the future. Thank you.